If you've ever tried to run a local LLM on your computer, you know that it's pretty trash. It's a bad experience. It doesn't really work. But that actually just changed thanks to the latest release of qwen 3.6, which is a 27 billion parameter model optimized for agentic coding, improved multimodality capabilities, and it uses lower virtual RAM, which means you can run it on your computer decently. And let me tell you right now, it finally works. It can code, it can do agentic stuff, it can recognize images, it can create files, read your code base, contribute, and it works offline entirely on your computer. On top of that, with the new release of MLX, which is the Apple framework to run LLMs locally on your computer, running this model, it's now more reliable than ever. So in today's video, I'm gonna show you how you can download it and run it on your computer. And I'm gonna show you some pretty cool examples that I've made with qwen 3.6. Let's get into it. So qwen 3.6 was announced on April 21. So it's pretty new. And I just wanna show you the benchmarks because this model is surprisingly very decent. It's not going to replace the latest Opus model, but definitely it's something cool to have it running on your computer, being able to use it while you are on a flight, when you don't have internet, when you reach your limits. You can actually get stuff done with this model. It now delivers agentic coding performance, surprising previous generations open source flagship qwen 3.5, and of course it's fully open sourced. Let's take a look at the benchmarks here. For agentic terminal, you can compare this one to basically Opus 4.5. So it's not gonna be the latest Opus, but if you remember, Claude 4.5 was pretty decent. And this model, it's basically the same for agentic coding. It's literally the same value. It's gonna perform a bit worse than 4.5, but definitely it's amazing that you can run it on your own computer. Now, by the way, one thing to mention is that if you're running on this on a Mac, you're gonna need at least an RTX 4090. According to the specs, you at least need 16 gigabytes of memory, but I think that's gonna be super tight, so I would recommend at least 24. Now, that said, what I like to do when I'm running local LLMs is that I like to go to the canirun.ai website, but this model is actually so new that they don't have it here. The last one they have is 3.5, but if at the time that you are watching this video, maybe it's on the list. This website basically tells you the specs of your computer. So right now I'm using an Apple M3 Ultra, which is, the best of the best at the moment, with 96 gigabytes of VRAM and 80 cores. So pretty decent machine. That means that I can run this model decently fine, but actually I tried to run it on my laptop. It's a MacBook Pro with 18 gigabytes of VRAM, and I wasn't able to run it, unfortunately. So that's the catch. You have to have at least a decent machine, but if you have the RAM, you can absolutely run it. So the way you can download it is by using LM Studio. LM Studio is my favorite desktop application because it's super easy to use and it allows you to download any model. So just go to LM Studio. Once you download ML Studio, you're gonna see something like this. So make sure to enable developer mode, otherwise you won't be able to see this tab. If you didn't do that, you can always go to the settings and enable developer mode here. All right, next thing that you want to do is just go to the model search tab. And it's actually the first one right here. This is the one that you want to download. If you don't see it here, just search for it and then download it. It's gonna be like 20 gigabytes. And after that, you will be able to go to the chat inside LM Studio and then just select the model and you can load it or eject it. Now, the cool thing about qwen 3.6 is that it's actually a reasoning model that also supports vision and tool calling. So you can ask things like, let me start a new chat. How's the weather today? I don't think it knows my location, but let's see. You can see that it's actually thinking. I'm gonna ask specifically for Bentonville, Arkansas, and then hopefully it's gonna use the tool to check the weather. By the way, you can always see the logs of this in real time in the developer tab here. So you can see the tokens that we are generating, the logs. You can increase the context window. That's why I really like LM Studio. It's really good experience. And on top of that, they have these max concurrencies. So you can set this to 4, for example, like me. That means that you can have 4 sessions at the same time. You can even enable cache quantization. This means that the output is going to be faster, but you can hurt performance in the quality. So that's why I haven't turned this on. But if you need faster responses, you can always turn this on. So that's how you easily can start running and loading the model. But most importantly, I like to use it for coding tasks. And if you want to do that, you can just make sure that you have running the model and then turn this on, which basically is going to enable this endpoint to make it reachable at this endpoint. Okay, now this is actually compatible with OpenAI API, and that means if you click here, you can see that we have the endpoints that opencode is going to expect to connect to any local computer. So if you have opencode already installed on your computer, just go to your configuration that you can use the image recognition. You need to pass the modalities here. So this is important. Once you added this to your JSON, you can go back to your terminal and open opencode, and it's going to start working just great. So here I have actually a couple of examples that I've been working on that I want to show you, but just let's create a real example right now. I'm going to go to my new tab. I'm actually inside my AI Tattoo application project, and let me actually bring the application here. I actually asked the agent to create a new tab and it did it. So let's open opencode. Once you added the configuration, the model is running locally. You can just go to the models and connect directly. You should be able to find it in the local models. So right now I have it here already. It's running locally from LM Studio. I also have Gemma, but Gemma is pretty bad for real tasks. So qwen 3.6, 27 billion is honestly mind-blowing. Let's try to ask for something interesting. Like for example, let's say that I want to know the SF symbols names of these icons here. So I can take a screenshot, paste it in here, and then tell me the name of the SF symbols of these icons. All right, we can send that in. You can, again, always go back to LM Studio and monitor how everything is coming here in the logs. You can see that we are generating tokens, handling the responses, and it's building. And at the same time, I can go back to another chat that I was working on. For example, this is the chat where I asked the agent to create the new dev tab and display simple text, right? So now we can actually ask more complex things. Let me make this big. Okay, so it's now telling me the SF symbols used in the tab, right? That's pretty cool. So let's go back to another chat. This is the same conversation, just asked for a new screen, and it actually recognized my code base. I couldn't do this with any other local model. This is amazing. So in here, maybe I can ask to display a card with the user info for devs only. So include ID and useful information, hit enter, boom. And then we can toggle between other conversations. And what's cool about this, guys, is that of course this is gonna work offline and it's running on my machine. I'm recording my screen at the same time. Of course, my machine has 96 gigabytes, but it's working nicely. And on top of that, I actually went ahead and asked for a Minesweeper game, and it created an HTML. Then I also asked for a snake game, right? So let me actually show you those games. This is the Minesweeper. You can see that the design is pretty good. It did this all by itself and it works nicely. And I asked for this game, snake game, and I can play it. So how cool is that? Let's try to ask to change the emoji, for example, right? It's an apple. Let's go back, and this is the snake game chat. Change the emoji to be random between apple, orange, and other fruits. And remember that it's actually working here. So we have now two concurrencies in my machine. I asked the SF symbols question here. This worked really nicely. This seems correct. So I'm gonna close this conversation just to keep things simple. It recognizes images, which is really nice. We have two concurrent connections. This is the snake game. I also asked the agent to create a 3-page document explaining how LLMs work, and it did it. It created a markdown file, so I'm surprised about it. Now, some things that I've realized is that you're gonna notice that it's thinking for a while and you don't get like the feedback that you get, for example, in LM Studio when you're chatting with it. But in here, you will get directly the response sometimes. So after a while, it will give you the response. By the way, you can also see the current concurrencies here. So we have the Gen 1 and Gen 2, and it's generating tokens in both. So that's pretty cool as well. Okay, it's editing right now, the snake game. Here we can see the fruits that it's gonna use. So I'm actually super surprised with these guys because this is actually useful and you can actually use this for fun things. I'm not saying it's going to replace, you know, Opus 4.8, which is the latest model, but definitely I can feel that it's very similar to the experience that I used to get with Opus 4.5. There we go. Okay, it's done. Let's see. Let's refresh. And now we get an orange. I mean, can you believe this, guys? And then from here, you can keep iterating, like each fruit will give you different points. Maybe we can add something that will kill you if you eat it. Game over. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I'm super excited about this. Now, on the display card, this is actually taking a while. And actually, my code base, it's pretty big. This is a real application. This is my AI tattoo app. And I've noticed that, you know, local models are pretty decent at writing HTML, as we saw right now. But as soon as you put them into something more complex, like a mobile application, they start tripping. They start importing things that don't make sense and it's not usable. But qwen 3.6, 27 billion, it's in another level. And the efficiency that it's running on my machine, I mean, other models that I tried in the same machine, longer to run. And I think that has to do with the MLX support, the new framework from Apple to run LLMs locally. So definitely very excited about this. And I think it's now actually worth investing in a good machine that can allow you to run these kind of models locally, because you can integrate them to opencode, expose them through an API. And actually LM Studio has a pretty cool feature that allows you to connect to this model through the application. So I actually have here my LM Link, which is an app that you can download on your phone. So let me actually show you right now. Oh, and I can hear the vent of my machine. I've never heard that from my Mac. The vents are on. Definitely this task is a complex one because my Mac Studio is hot. I can tell you that. I'm still recording the screen and running a bunch of things. But if you take a quick look, it's actually running sub agents. So definitely this is a complex task. And if it can do it, I'm gonna be extra surprised. Look at this, guys. It did 31 tool calls and basically grabbed the information of my entire code base. It knows that I'm using Better Auth, the config between server, client, and all the useful information that is going to display. So look at all these data. Boom. And there we have it. I mean, it didn't put it on a scroll view, but I can see it. This is for developers only, so I'm happy with the style. It's giving me the name of the current authenticated user, email, it's verified when it was created, the tier, premium, no, entitlements, none. How cool is that? Let's actually see if I can subscribe to the weekly just for fun and see if it actually changes. All right, so I subscribed, go to the dev. Yep, tier premium, yes. It took almost 10 minutes to do that. My machine was on fire, the fans were loud, but it's better now. The temperature is lower. I'm honestly super surprised because you could be able to do this on a laptop, for example, as long as you have good RAM. I'm using a Mac Studio, but super surprised by the results. You can ask follow-up questions and it will just work. So definitely, I think this is useful. I didn't pay for anything. I cannot believe it, to be honest. Last feature that I want to mention from LM Studio. There's an app called Locally AI, which is from LM Studio. If you open it, you can actually connect using the LM Link feature. And it's awesome because it allows you to chat from your phone with your agents. So in here, I can use Apple Foundation or just select qwen 3.6 billion from my phone and I can start chatting. Like, let's just select one of these prompts for now. And this is going to be connected through my computer. It's actually loading the model. Let's see. There we have it. It's working. So right now I'm connected through my phone to the model locally. My computer can actually be sleeping and I can be on my bed chatting with my model locally. Many other things. You can run this as a cron job. It can actually search the internet using the tool calling. There we have it. Let's see if we can search the internet. It's not searching, not sure why, but I'm gonna ask, what do you see in this picture? And let's submit. This is a beautiful scene image capturing a dramatic sunset. By the way, that was my view yesterday when I went for a while, so that's very cool. Okay, so I think this is a good point to wrap up this video. I'm extremely surprised for the possibilities because from here, of course, it's gonna get better and better. And Apple is set to announce new Macs soon, I think, at least this year. So they are optimizing for running LLMs locally. And as more companies keep open sourcing models like this one, I think this is gonna get more useful and more useful. And definitely it's good to know what's new out there, what you can actually do with these local models right now, and what are the specs that you currently need. But of course, I hope in the future getting a machine will get maybe cheaper with better memory, and then you're gonna be able to run models locally. Apple already ships with Apple Intelligence and you can ask their model to do things. But I think this one specifically for agentic coding, I mean, you saw that we were able to add a new screen and, you know, fetch, scan the codebase, get data, display it on screen. This is honestly the first time that I'm doing this. My computer got hot, but it did the job. So I'm super surprised. You can also pass images. It supports tool calling. You can pass skills, even though it's not gonna be like the best experience like you have with Opus 4.8. But definitely I'm gonna be using these more and more. I've been using this for a couple of days and sometimes I'm like, okay, I have a question of how do you write this, right? I'm always improving my English. How can I write this? And I'll just go ahead and ask my local agent for that. And then I'm also thinking I should go ahead and cancel my ChatGPT subscription because I have both. So I can maybe just keep the Claude subscription for work and more complex agentic tasks. And for the simple things like refactoring, copying things around, maybe I can just use the local model. That's pretty cool. That's it for this video. If you want to keep learning more about mobile development with agentic tools like Claude or now your local agents, check out my book From Idea to App Store. The link is in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.